Hello, welcome to the
We have
session.
gone through
Iterative statement. In the iterative statements, we do have two loops. One is for loop, and then the other one is while loop. For loop, we are having two varieties. One is for, and then the other one is for else. And similarly, in while loop, we are having while loop and then while else loop. So now in the for loop, in the previous session, I have told you how to iterate a string, tuple, list, dictionary. We can actually iterate a set as well, but yeah, for now this four are actually fine. And then we have gone through various examples of for loop and the iteration, how it is working and all. Then we have gone through range and length, that is len, then enumerate. We can enumerate a list, enumerate a tuple, and we can also now use range. And in range, various type of range. I've just given the examples. One is range, range. The syntax is range followed by start, stop, and end, or you can say step, start, stop, and step. This is how we can actually deal with the range. Today's session, we'll go through for else loop and nested for loop. Nested for loop. Nested for loop is like we do have a for loop over here, and then we want to actually do some operations inside this for loop. I can have another for loop here. Then inside this second for loop, I can have another for loop, or it can be a combination of any loops, conditional statement, or anything. So this is like now if inside if is known as nested if, for inside for is known as nested for. So now what is the real-time use cases? Nested for loop. What is the real-time use cases? Let me write write an example to make you understand now how to deal with a nested for loop. Let's say I have a data. The data is for all the employees of my organization, and the first name is specifying here. If this is a list, and which is containing a list inside. This is the first employee record, this is the second employee record, then we do have third employee record, and we do have fourth employee record. Okay, now the first employee, I'm just giving here Subbu, and the location I'm just giving Subbu is in India, and Subbu joined in 2001. And then I do have, let's say they were here, and then here I am having the location, let's say USA, and they were joined in 2020. Now here I'm having TP, and TP is the employee for our UK location, and we do have the data in, let's say TP joined in 2011. Then I do have the record here, let's say Rajul, and Rajul is in, let's say for example, Rajul is in France, and the looking, he has joined in the year of, let's say 1990, for example, like this. So this is the data, and which is having a list, like how to identify whether it is a list. List is enclosed in square brackets. Now, how many items are here? We do have 4 items. And what is the type of these items? The type of these items are actually list again. So we do have a list inside a list. Now, the question is, how do I iterate it? If I'm giving for employee in or employee record in, or let's say data, I'm just giving 4 spaces here, print, let's say I'm just giving here EMP. What it is going to do, it is actually going to print that Subbu in 2001 in square bracket, the list as is, okay? And if you want to actually iterate, this is how it is going to work. Let me write the program here, nested for, give me a second, new Python file, nested for. in the nested for, I do have this data. If I'm running this program, here you can see the data as I explained. Here you can see this the record one, the Subbu's record, and the record two is actually bus record, record three is actually typist record, record four is actually Rajul's record. Now, the question is, whenever the need is, iterate the second list. Let's say, for example, here you can see the list is containing like now four lists. So whenever your requirement is iterating the sub list, how do we do it? We can definitely, there are better ways to do it, but for now, let us do it using nested for loop. Let's say for emp in data, this is my second approach, and here I'm just giving for, let's say here I'm just giving like an employee record in emp record, sorry, data, then I'm just giving emp in emp record, then here I can say print, let's say I'm just giving like my emp, and I'm just giving end equals to space or end equals to hyphen or double hyphen, anything is fine. Let us see like now what kind of data it is actually going to give us. Let me do one thing. Let me do not disturb this program, and I'm just going to right now comment it out. The first word I can specify here is the commented. Now the second for loop here, I'm having like an employee record in data. Then we are iterating each item under employee record. Let's say how this is going to work. In the first attempt, it is going to get the list first item here. It is like Subbu in 2020. Then EMP record will become like on the Subbu in and 2020. This is a list again. Then we are iterating the list, the element of the second list, like our inner list here, like our sub list here. Here you can see that is Subbu double hyphen in, then 2001. This is how it is actually going to iterate. Let's say if I'm running this program, look at here. This is how we can actually get Subbu in 2001 Deva. If you want to actually give a space over here, then you can definitely use a print statement here. Like if you're running this program, here you can see Subbu in 2001, Deva USA 2020, TP UK 2021, then Rachel France in 1990. Let's say our requirement is, we do have a list of lists. Okay, list of lists. In this case, we are having the employee records. The first list, I mean the first element of the outer list, if you look at, it is having like Subbu's record. If a requirement is get the employee name and location, get the employee name and location for each employee. How do we do it? Let me write another nested for loop. You Python file nested for example 2. Here we go. And then instead of like printing everything, what we can actually do here is, let's say for example, we are actually reading, here we do not need a nested for loop. Basically, what we need to do is, we need to actually read the item. Let's say for example, employee record in this. Then what you want is, you really don't need a nested for loop here. Okay. So what we can do here is, we can print here, print EMP record of, let's say 0, 0 is nothing but the name, and then EMP record of 1, that is my location. We really don't need a nested for loop. Now, here what we can do, here we can specify a hyphen to differentiate like now the data over here. Now, if I'm running this program, let's say, see here. Okay, so what is the data? Subbu is in, that is in India location, Deva is in US location, Tip is in UK, Rachel in France. In real-time examples, let's say you are having a list of items and you are actually going to pick the employee names for a specific location. Let's say one organization, there are still 40,000 employees, but ideal case, we do not have like large items in a list, because it is going to create memory issues, and we should not actually use like a list, because it is going to take like a lot of time, so a lot of memory, and then in those cases, like now avoid it. Like now in my upcoming sessions, I'm just going to tell you like how to identify the size of the object in the runtime environment, okay, in the real time or when you're actually executing the program. How do I identify like now what is the size of this data and like now how to optimize the execution and all these things. We'll talk about it in the real time example session. Now, for now, here you can see the other way what we've done. Like now we have used a nested for loop. In this case, we are actually iterating the list, and then here we are actually using the index, and the previous session the index starts with 0 and then the index ends with like length of the basically if you want to like get the length, it is alien, so the last index is length minus 1, or else the negative index is minus 1, minus 2, up to minus of length of that particular list or tuple. So now that's all about like how do we traverse. Let's say for example, we do have like real-time data. Let's say I'm having the data here is like the Subbu's record is actually present in a list, Deva's record is present in a tuple, okay, and then TT's record is actually present in a dictionary. I'm just going to define the dictionary here. Let me define a dictionary here. I can specify name equals to Rachel, and the location equals to friends, and then here joining, I'm just giving like non-joining date. Uh, Joining date, the value is 1999, 1990. Okay, so now look at here. So Subbu's, here we do have like Subbu, IN, and then 2001, then Deva, US, and then 2020, this is a tuple. Then Rachel dictionary here. A dictionary is should be like enclosed in bracket. Now let's say I do have your let's say string. I'm just giving like Subhasis, and then I have like the year, that is 2022. Okay, so now look at here. So this data, it is a list because it is enclosed in square bracket, and the elements here you can see the elements are different types. If you are familiar with any of the programming languages, like C, C++, Java, or any of the programming languages, we do have array concept over there. So the array means it is homogeneous items. Let's say, for example, integer array can contain only integer, string array can contain only string. So we cannot use a combination. We do have two type of implementations. One implementation is actually list. List can contain heterogeneous items. In this case, this list is containing one list. The item 1 is actually item 0 at index 0 is actually a list. Then the second item is a tuple. Third item is a dictionary. Fourth item is a string. Fifth item is a like year. Now, if you want to actually traverse it using a for loop, then you should actually understand what is the underlying data. Without understanding what is your underlying data, we cannot actually iterate further, because before the iteration we should able to identify the type. For example, here I'm just checking like now I'm just picking each item from the list. I'm just giving like now let's for example here I'm just giving for each, let's say, data, or I can say uh, VAT in, or you can say item in, or anything. You can, for each item in the data, let us check what is the type of this item. Okay, to check the type of this item, we do have one function that is no shortcut, and we do have a function or a method that is known as is instance, and here we can specify what is the is instance of I can specify like now this item is of instance type, let's say for example tuple, or if the item type is list, then we can actually iterate it. Okay, let's say for example, we can iterate a list and tuple using an inner for loop. Now, how do I write the inner for loop here? Inner for loop I can type here like now um, for let's say variable in the item for variable in the item, and then here I need to specify like now print a variable. So what it is going to do, this is a outer for loop. So it is going to pick one item at a time. Then I'm just checking, let's say for example in the first item, is this first item is a tuple or a list? Then use another for loop to iterate the item. So now here it is going to iterate Subbu, IN and then 2001. Let's say to do that, let's say I want to print it using a end. I'm just using the end separator is a CSV file, okay, comma here. Now, this will be printed like Subbu, comma IN, comma 2001. Then similarly, Deva, comma USA, then 2020. Now, if the item is not a tuple or list type, then I'm just checking here, elif, each instance, if is the instance type for the particular item is a dictionary, I can specify a dict. Okay, if item type is dictionary, then definitely what we can actually do here is we can we can actually check here elif is instance type is dictionary, then I can use a for loop. In for loop, previous session I told you like now how to iterate a dictionary. To iterate a dictionary, we need the keys. Okay, so now what I can define here for key in item, for key in item, here I can specify for key in item, then here I can specify print item of key, item of key. For key in item, print item of key. What it is going to do, it is going to print Rachel, France, and 1990. Now, if I want to give a separator here, like now I can specify and comma here again, and then dictionary is done. If it is not dictionary, not tuple or list, then directly print the item as is. So how do I specify it? I can specify print the item directly. Okay, so here we go. And if you want to give a new line after each iteration, you can use a print. Now, let me write this program. So this is a complex one, but real time when you are actually dealing with like API calls, or you are getting the data from a JSON file, and which is having like complex data similar to this one, then you should actually know like how to iterate effectively. Let me put it here. Python file for heterogeneous list, okay, nested list, okay. And now Python file, and this is the example, and let us see there is some syntax error because I missed the colon over here, that's it, not here, this is the colon here. Okay, so now let me see like now what is going to happen here. So now the moment I'm running the program, what it is going to do, it is going to write like no Subbu IN 2001, it should be comma separated. Deva US 2020, it will be also comma separated. From the dictionary, it is getting the values, that is Rachel, France, and 1990, and Subhasis and 2022 will be printed as is. Now, if I'm running this program, let us see. Okay, the mistake is there. The mistake is the type should not be quoted, because if I'm quoting it, it should be, it is actually treating it as a string. So type should not be quoted. So that's it. So it is actually flagging. So how to interpret this error message? Let us see here. Type error. Each instant argument 2 must be, okay, argument 2 must be a type. We are defining type, but what is happening here? We are actually using as a string. If we quote it, it becomes a string. Okay. So now here I'm just given like, each instance is a function or a method which can take two items. One is the variable name or the object name. Second, what type of this object. And it returns a Boolean value, is it true or false? Okay. So now I'll just give another example to understand like how each instance is actually working. So now run the program again. Once you run the program again, as discussed, like Subbu, IN 2001, Deba, USA 2020, then Dejul, France in 1990, then Shubhasis, and then 2022 is there. So this is how the data is actually going to look like. Let's say, for example, to understand each instance, let us write another program. So slowly, in the examples, I'm just going to introduce different methods. So far, you are familiar with like length, you are familiar with like now how to use enumerate. So today, I have covered like each instance. I'll just proceed further and we'll get familiar with like a lot of methods. Python has millions of methods, but it is practically impossible to memorize all the methods. Okay, so it will take some time. Based on your use cases, you can actually learn many methods. Okay, the more methods or more modules you know, the less number of lines of code you are actually going to write. Then a Python file. So let me write a Python file here, new Python file, and I'm just giving the Python file name each instance example dot py. Okay, so now this is the each instance I'm just giving here. Let's say number equals to 10. Okay, and then I'm just giving here name equals to Subbu. Let's say list 1 equals to then comma 20 comma 30. Now print each instance. I'm just giving here number is int type and print each instance number is, let's say I'm just giving if number is a list type, let us say it should actually print false. Now print each instance each instance name is str type, that is string type. Print each instance list 1 is a list type. Print each instance list 1 of tuple type. Print each instance list 1. I'm just checking here if list 1 is of dictionary type, that is dect. So it should be list 1. So now look at here what it is going to do. As I mentioned, like it is going to give us the Boolean values. So Boolean values are actually case sensitive. The first letter should be capital. True, T is capital. False, F is actually capital. Now, if you look at here, what it is returning. If number variable or number object is of int type, yes, it is of int type. Then we are getting like true. And the second one, we are actually using each instance. Number is of list type. Number is of not list type, it is of int type. So definitely the answer here should be like false. Now, each instance, name is of str type. Name here is actually str type. So we do have like true here. Similarly, is list 1 is of list type, then we do have it like true here. But list 1 is not a tuple type or dictionary type, so that's the reason why do have like false here. There is a question like whether like here we go, whether we can iterate the Subbu's record. There is there in the chat like whether we can actually iterate Subbu's record. Yes, we can actually iterate Subbu's record here. Let's say, for example, Subbu's record is actually item number 0. Okay, and there are actually able to identify like where exactly Subbu is present, whether it is actually at index 0 or index 10 or index 15. So far, we did not actually cover anything. So I'm just going to iterate the first index. Let's first Here I can directly give for variable or for data in, for d in, I can say like for data in, d in, variable in, or anything you item in. Then I can say here data of 0, data of 0. Now print. Here I can say like print d as in data. Now let us see what it is going to do. It is actually going to print Subbu INN 2001. Subbu INN 2001. Here you can see Subbu INN 2001. We can iterate it. Now the question is, how do I know like if Subbu is actually present at 0th location or it is actually present somewhere else? In the list functions, don't worry, I'm just going to tell you that how to identify where exactly Subbu is present, whether it is actually present in the list one, sorry, item number 0 or item number 1 or item number 2 or item number 3 or anywhere. So we can actually do that. So it is possible we can iterate the item. Let's say for example, if you where you iterate the last element here, the last element is actually something went wrong here. I'm just going to put it in the next line. So here we go. So even if your data is actually looking complex and you want to break it down, you can do it like this. So it is also supported. It is not going to throw any error. It is not going to throw any error. Let's say, for example, I'm having the data in this format. Okay, so if I'm running the program for better readability, if I'm running the program, it is still going to work. And if you want to iterate like this, put it like this, it is also going to work. It is also going to work. So what you need to do is you need to actually align it properly so that you can actually understand your elements well. Okay, so now you can actually specify like this, and then here you go. So this is how you can actually identify your data. This is data item 0, this is actually index 1, this is actually index 2, this is index 3 and index 4. So this kind of syntax is also supported. This kind of syntax is also supported. No need to explicitly specify like continuation, that is backslash or any other characters. You can feel free to use this way. Python has its own artificial intelligence. Python can interpret, okay, like the code is written in, in this case, the list is actually defined in multi-lines, so it can actually understand it. But if you are actually going for, let's say, for example, this line, it will be like a little difficult for you to interpret, like what is the data and all. So feel free to use whatever is actually you are comfortable, or from readability point of view, whatever you feel like comfortable, you can actually use that way. If you want to actually do, it's not like now one item in one line, you can have two items in one line also. That is also supported. If I can actually specify like this, it is also going to work. Okay, it is also going to work. You can see it here, the data is like this. So we can iterate anything. So the question was like, no, whether we can iterate Subbu's record. Yes, we can actually iterate Subbu's record in this case. So this is all about how we can actually deal with a nested for loop. Now I'm going to tell you a new topic. The new topic is known as transfer statements. Transfer statement. Under control statements or control flow, we do have three different things. The first one is like the conditional statements: if else, if else, nested if else, and other things. Then we do have loops, that is known as iterative statements. Under iterative statements, we are learning for loop. Then we do have something known as uh, transfer statements. Under transfer statement, we do have break, continue, and pass. Break, continue, and pass. If you're familiar with any of the programming languages, then in loops, we do use break and continue. But pass, it is not available in all the programs. Okay, so in Python, we do have pass. It is like pass is not going to do anything. It is always true. It is not going to do anything. Okay, so it's not like similar to print, because print, it is a print statement. Pass, the statement is different. Okay, so wherever your requirement is to don't do anything or pass the control, then you can actually pass it using the pass keyword or pass statement. So now here we go, like, to understand, like, break statement. Let's say I'm using a loop, and inside loop, let's say certain conditions, I want to break the loop. So in that case, what we can actually do is we can use break and continue. Continue should, like, moving the control to the beginning of the loop, but wherein the break is going to move the control out of the loop. Break is going to break the loop. Okay, so if you're familiar with, like, now break and continue in cell, it's just the same. It's just the same here. Like, in Barnacle shell scripting or kernel shell scripting or any of the scripting you are familiar with, or any other programming language, if you are familiar with, like, break and continue in Python, it does the same thing. So now to understand, like, break and continue, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say I'm having a names. Names is a list, okay, and in names, let's say I'm having Subbu, I'm having here, I'm having Devasis, here I'm having Deepak, and here I'm having Tanmay, and here I'm having Shubhasis, Hemantray, and here I'm having Ashutosh. Okay, so this is like the list of in Python. Like, ideally, whenever you are actually using IDE, in IDE, you should actually use, this is best practice again, it's not part of the syntax. Give the first element, then comma, then there is a space, then the second element, then again comma, there is a space, then the third element, then comma, then space. Similarly, you can specify it like this. And if you're giving, like, not 2 spaces, 3 spaces, 5 spaces, no spaces, it is also going to work. Okay, so now if I'm going to write for name in names, okay, for name in names, I'm just giving 4 spaces and then print name. What it is going to do? It is going to print Shubhu, Devasis, Deepak, Tanmay, Subhasis, Samantha, and Ashutosh. Okay. So now look at here. Look at here. Let's say, for example, I'm having a 4 break example. I'm just going to give you now new Python file and for break Python file. Okay. Now look at here, if I'm running this program, I'm just getting all the names. Subhasis, Devasis, Deepak, Tanmay, Subhasis, Samantha, and Ashutosh. But if my requirement is the loop should break if the name is more than 10 characters. Now, in this case, Subbu, it is actually, let's say I want to know, like, now the size of name. What I can specify here is I can definitely specify what is the size, that is using length of name. If I'm giving, here you can see while running the program, here you can see it is like, 5 characters, this 7 characters, this 7, and here you can see this 19 characters. So as soon as the name is actually beyond 10 characters, the loop should break. How do I tell the system, like, break it? Okay, let's say I'm just giving you, like, print, and I'm just giving asterisk mark. I'm just printing it, like, 50 times, for example, or 40 times. Anything is fine. Let's say 40 times. Now I do have a loop over here, and in this, what I'm checking is give, like, if the length of name is less than 10, then print name, else break. Else I'm just giving, like, here it is alignment issue, and we should actually align it, and here we should give, like, else we should actually use a break. That's it. So what it is going to do, try to understand here, it is a very simple program. We do have names. In the first for loop, it is going to print the name followed by the size or the length of the particular name. Like Subbu, it is actually five characters. Devasis, it is 7 characters. Deepak is 6. Tanmay is 7. Similarly, Subha system, there is 19 characters, and Ashutosh is 7. Now, it is going to print asterisk mark 40 times. So this is known as repetition or duplication operator. Okay, and then we are actually reading the name again from the names is a list. We are checking if length is less than 10, only then print. If it is not less than 10, then break. Okay, so now it is going to print till Tanmay, and it is going to break because Subhas's Samantra is actual 19 characters. If I'm running this program, let us see what is the difference here. Okay, in the first output, it was actually printing everything, but our condition here is like if the length is less than 10 characters, only then print, else it should break. Whenever it is like encountering Subhasi Samantra, the size is actually 19 characters, and in the second part, it is actually breaking at this point because the value here is the length of this particular name, actually 19 characters. So it is actually printing Subhasis, Devasis, Deepak, and Tanmay. Let's say, for example, you want to print the names which are exactly 7 characters, and you don't want to print anything else, and we can actually use a continue over there. Let me tell you that, like, how do we do it? Let's Python file. Here we have for continue, Python file here, and let's say I'm just taking it out the first part. I'm just taking it out the first part, and this one is also not needed. But here, what we can actually say, like, if the length is not 7, length is not 7, not equals to 7, not equals to 7, then continue. Else, I'm just giving print name. So in this case, what it is going to do, it is going to print Tanmay, it is going to print Devasis, it is going to print Ashutosh. The output should be Devasis, Tanmay, and Ashutosh. So if I'm running this program, here you can see Devasis, Tanmay, and Ashutosh. So this is how continue is actually working. It's not like you can actually use a length and then continue. It's not like that. Any condition you can actually use. When I'm talking about like the conditions, it could be any logical conditions. It could be any members of operator. It could be any identification operator. It could be literally anything you can actually use it. Okay. So comparison operators, you can compare numbers and then break and continue, and all these things operations are actually possible. So now this is the example of like the continue how it is going to work. Let's say, for example, let us understand like now I'm just going to write a small program here, and I do have like now range range, or I can define here like for I in range of 10. Okay, for I in range of 10, if I percentage percentage 7, I percentage 7 equals to 0, then break, else print I. This is a small program. In real time, I'm just giving an example. It could be anything. Okay, let's say, for example, customer ID. Now, customer ID should be in the range of, let's say, for example, you define the valid customer ID should be in the range of 1000 to 9999. If it is below 10,000, these are like the test IDs. If it is beyond 10,000, those are actually invalid customer IDs. How do you do that? Like, let's say, for example, you are processing the billing, and the business logic number one is like pick the customer IDs from the database and then identify the invalid customer IDs, filter it out, or else do not proceed further, break the execution. Then in that case, you can actually have the conditions, and with a break statement, you can actually break the loop. Let's say, for example, you want to ignore the customer IDs. For example, if the customer ID is not within the range of 1000 to 9999, continue. Like, don't do anything. So in that case, you can actually use a continue statement. Now, here you see, like, it is going to start with like 0, and then it is actually going to like till 10, till 10, like 0 to 9. Basically, if you're giving the range of 10, it is 0 to 9, and it is going to check like 0 percentage 7. If it is 0, then break, or else like print the I value. So in this case, what it is going to do, it is actually going to print nothing. Why it is not printing anything? Like let us see here, percentage 7, I percentage 7, I in range of this, and we are actually going to print this one. Okay, so 0% is 7, 0% is 7 is 0, so that's the reason why it is not doing anything. Let me start it with 1. Okay, so now control shift F10. Sometimes like simple programs takes time to understand, like it was starting with 0, 0% is 7 is 0, so it was breaking, it was not printing anything. So what I've done is I've just started like 1 to 10, and when the value is 7, 7% is 7 is 0, so it is actually going to break. Let me do one thing, let me do one thing for continue. I'm just giving an example here. Let's say for I percentage 2, if I percentage 2 equals to 0, then I don't want to do anything. I want to tell the system like continue. I don't want to do any operation. Now here I'm telling like now it should start with 1 till 10, or 1 till, let's say 1 till 9. If you want like 1 till 10, then definitely you should actually give 11 here. So now it should start with, if I percentage 2 equals to 0, then continue. Okay, and then otherwise print. So what it is going to do is it is going to print all odd numbers starting 1 till 9. Now if I'm running this program, here you can see it is like 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. This is the second for loop. To differentiate, we can definitely use a print statement here, like print followed by anything you want. You can actually do that and then run the program. And here you can see this is the first for loop, where 7, the condition is 7, it is breaking. And then here it is like, if I percentage 2 equals 0, it will actually continue the loop and don't do anything basically. So in this case, you can actually use continue. Okay, so now this is like the edge case of continue and break. Okay, this is the edge case of continue and break. How the continue statement is actually working and how the break statement is actually working. We do have something known as first statement. Okay, first statement. Let's say, for example, I'm just writing a program here. Maybe for continue here. Okay, I'm just going to write. Here we go, new, then Python file, and I'm just giving here for pass example. Here we go. Let's say let's say name equals to name in names, and then my condition here is if the name is Subhasis or like the name is Deepak. Okay, name is Subhasis or name is Deepak, then pass. Here I can say like print processing the billing for, here I can select the name. Okay, now let's say I have a statement here, if name equals to Subbu, I can say here like pass, else print billing. So this is a dummy script, but ideally your business logic should be here. Now let us see here, Control Shift and F10. Now here you can see what is happening. Like whenever you are actually processing the billing for Subbu, it is saying like the billing is processed. If name equals to, look at here guys. So Subbu, why it is? Because it is cache sensitive. Okay, so now Control Shift F10. Here you go. Now if you look at the output here, it is saying like now processing billing for Subbu. And if you want to pass it, like now this pass it to the next iteration or pass, then in that case, what you can say, like the block, from the if block, you'll be actually coming out. Okay. So now let's say, for example, if I'm giving here print, okay, let's say done. Now print here, I'm just giving like done. Okay, so now here you go, like control shift F10. Here you go, like let us look at the first value, like processing the billing for Subbu, then done. Your question could be like, what is the difference between pass and continue? Instead of pass, if I put continue here, like what is going to happen? It is going to print like processing billing record. It is not going to print done. But in case of pass, what we are actually telling is, if condition is passed, then come out of the block. Like in this case, if else, right? So in this case, what is going to happen? Like it is not going to take any action. Then it should actually come out of the if, and the program should not actually, the control should not be going to the beginning of the loop. The control should be going ahead with the execution of the remaining statements. Now, in this case, when the name is Subbu, it is printing like processing the billing for Subbu, and then checking if name equals true, then don't do anything. Then print done. Now we are getting like processing the billing for Subbu done. But whenever it is Debasis, it is printing like processing the billing for Debasis, and then billing is processed. We are getting the message billing is processed. Then we are actually getting done. And then similarly, if you look at like Subhas's Samant, the last but one record, here you can see processing the billing for Subhas's Samant billing process, then done. Okay. Now the question here could be the difference between pass and continue. Let us try to interpret like what is the difference. The output here was for Subbu's record, it was actually printing, processing the billing, and then printing done. But if I use like continue instead of pass, continue instead of pass. Let us see here, like now I'm just commenting pass, I'm just giving here like now I'm just going to give here continue, continue. Now let us see like what is going to happen. The output will be processing billing record for Subbu, done will not be printed, because from this point the control will be again going to the beginning of the loop, and it is going to start processing the basis record. Now control shift F10, if I'm going to do here, here you can see the output. Okay, so processing the record for Subbu, the done statement will never get executed for Subbu's record, because we are explicitly telling the system, hey, continue with the next item, continue with the next item. If your statement is continue, if your transfer statement is continue, but pass, it is actually going to complete the remaining statements in the same block. Okay, so now in this case, that is the difference. If you look at like devices, it is actually printing devices billing process done. Earlier when we were actually using pass, it was actually printing like processing the billing records for Subbu, then it was actually printing is done, right? But in case of continue, it is just printing processing the billing records for Subhasis, and then if the name is Subbu, then continue with devices. Okay, so this is the difference between, you can actually uncomment this example. Anyway, I'm going to put it in the drive. So whenever you want to actually try it out, just comment out to see the difference. Okay, just comment out to see the difference. Or else what I can actually do is like I can actually put together another example here, like uh, Python, new Python file, and I'm just giving for continue example to Python file. Here we go, and I'm just giving here continue. Okay, so now Control Shift F10. Here you can see the difference. So this was the program here, like it was writing like only Subbu, but in the other program, it was actually printing the done statement as well. So this is the difference between continue and pass. So this is a interesting concept, and the pass is an interesting concept. So when to use pass and when to use continue, if you are not familiar, refer these examples, you'll 100% understand like now what is the difference between these two and what is the real-time use cases of continue and pass. So that's all about the control statements in the for loop. Now we are done with the nested for loop. We are done with like various type of iterations like list, tuple, dictionary, string, and we can iterate everything. And then we are done with nested for loop. We are done with like and the continue. We are done with the break, and we are done with the pass statement. The next topic here is I'm just going to tell you about the while loop. Okay, the while is another iterative statement, and it is like while expression, or you can say like a condition then colon, and then you need to give. I'm using four spaces. You can have one, two, three, or four spaces, eight spaces. It is actually fine. So four spaces, and then here you can have like another statement or statements. Okay. So this is how the basic while loop. I mean the while loop syntax looks like. And let us write a program here. Let's say, for example, I'm just giving like I equals to one. Uh, when most of the programming is when we are actually learning like while loop, by default when program comes into my mind is like printing 1 to 10. So now let's say while I'm just giving your like I less than equals to 10, less than equals to 10. Here I can print uh, four spaces and print I. And while using like this type of syntaxes or this type of construct, like when you are actually checking for certain value with the condition, let's say in this case I equals to 1 and I less than equals to 10. One thing you must actually do inside your program is actually increment it, and you should not use I plus plus because the pre-increment, post-increment, pre-decrement, post-decrement are not supported in Python. Okay, because in Python, I was actually going through the blog to understand like why it is not supported. It is like in Python, they made it very simple. I plus plus, it will take some time. I value is I, the next value is I plus one. So that is a confusion for the beginners. So that's the reason like why they have taken it out and it is not at all supported. What you need to do is you can definitely use I equals to I plus one, I equals to I plus one, or the best way is to use the augmented operator, that is plus equals to one. Okay, if I run this program, it is actually going to print 1 to 10. Let me write the program by new Python file. Let's a basic file. Here we go. Now here we can run the program. Here you can run the program. Here you can see the result like now it is 1 to 10. If you want like the 1 to 10, 1 to 10 in the same line with a separator or with a line separator as command, you can do that. Let's say here it is going to print like now. It should be printing I equals to the second loop. The problem here is we need to again reset it back to 0 because the value is already 10 and it came out the second loop will not execute. So we can actually define it to like reset it back to 1. Now control shift of 10. If you do this, here you can see like 1 to 10. If your requirement is to the same values, print the same values like this, same values like this, let's say with a space, you can actually do that. Okay, so this is how we can actually execute the program. Sorry, I need to stop the execution. I need to put a control C, or I need to stop it here. Control C doesn't work in Python, so you should actually it should be like stop it is control F2, or you can actually stop it here. The mistake here was I was actually not using increment or decrement. So whenever you are actually not using the increment decrement, what it is going to do? It is actually going to print and the I value here like indefinite times, like indefinite times. So I plus equals to 1, I can specify here, execute the program, and here you see like 1 to 10, and then if you want to have a separator here, line separator, you can definitely specify like print here like control shift of 10 to execute the program. Here you can see the values in different formats. So this is like another file loop. We can also iterate a list using file loop. How do we iterate a list? Let's say, for example, I'm having a number, let's say list of number, I'm having a list, and list is a data type. Let me use it as list one. That's a 10. 20, then I'm having 30, then having 40, and then I'm having 50. Okay, so now we can actually use while list one. While list one is, in this case, we are telling the list is not empty. List one, while list one is, the list is not empty. In this case, the list one is not empty. So what we want to do is like now print list one dot pop. Don't worry about like now what is pop here. Pop is going to do, it is going to pop out the last element from a given list. In the list functions, I'm going to tell you details as we are covering like now the loop. Let us learn for now like now how to do a pop from a list. So now we are having 5 elements, and if you want to actually pop out the last element, we can actually pop out like now. Here we can actually pop out the last element using pop. Okay, so now if I'm executing this program, while list iteration, basically now Python file. Here I'm just giving file pop a list. Okay, so now here we go. And if I want to actually print the numbers here like one at a time, you can see like 50, 40, 30, 20, and 10. Now the question could be like, can we actually pop out like now from 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50? We can actually do that. Let me write another program, and then here we go. Python file and file pop list one. Okay, now here we go. This is the Python file, and I can actually give a index here. Index here is, let's say for example, if you give pop, it is actually going to pop the last item. If you give pop 0, it is always going to get the first item. And after pop, if you want to see, I'll write another program to make you understand like now how it is working. Let us understand here what it is going to do here is, it is going to print like 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Now to understand it better, let me write another program here. Okay, now file pop new Python file, and I'm just giving file list pop. Okay, and let's say I'm using this pub, and then followed by I'm just checking what is the list. Okay, let's say print remaining items. Remaining items is a string, has to be quoted. Remaining items in the list. Remaining items in the list, I can specify here list one. Okay, so now let us see like now what it is going to do. Initially, the list, let's say print, just giving here original list. The original list value I'm just giving here as the list one, and it is going to print 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Then we are actually popping out like now the index 0 value. Let's for example, in this case, it is actually 10. And as soon as it is popped out, the remaining items will be printed as 20, 30, 40, and 50. Similarly, in the second iteration, it will pop out 20, and the remaining items will be like 30, 40, and 50. And let us execute this program and see like how this pop operation is actually working on a list. Now here you go. So now look at here, the original list, then we popped out 10, remaining items is 20, 30, 40, 50. 20, then 30, 40, and 50. Then we are popping out 30. Then we are having like 40 and 50. Then remaining items here, like it is actually 50. Okay, and it is printing 50. Then the list is becoming empty. Okay, once the list is becoming empty, then the while loop is actually going to terminate. While here it is like a list. When we are actually using while list, then in this case, what is happening is we can actually iterate the list until the condition is actually true. Okay, let's say for example, another example I'm just going to give. Let me show you here. Let's say for example this one. Okay, I do have names here. Subbu, Devasis, Deepak, Tanmay, and Ashutosh. and then it is going to list the puppet from the, let's say, puppet from the beginning, that is Subbu. Let's say here I'm just going to tell uh, if this element length, if this element length is, let's say, if the length of, I can say here item, if the length of list one, that pop 0 is less than 10, or I can say greater than 10. I'm just telling here like in a bracket, break the loop. Else, we should not pop it again. We should not pop it again. We should actually store it in a variable. Let's say name equals to length this one. Then to make it simple, I'm just giving like length of name and greater than 10, then bracket, and then else it should actually print the name. Okay, we can use break, continue, and then everything like in the while loop too. Let's say, for example, let us write a program here, new Python file, and I'm just giving like now while break Python file. Here we go. So now what it is going to do? It is going to pop the item, let's say for example, in this case, it is going to pop the first item, that is Subbu, and checking what is the, it should actually use like just the pop, not the name. Okay, so not the length. So now it is popping the name and then checking if the length of name is actually greater than 10, then break. Otherwise, print the name. So it is going to break at this point. So output should be Subbu Devasis Deepak and Tanmay. So if I'm running this program, if I'm running this program, it is saying list one is actually not defined. What is the list one? It is actually names. Okay, fine. I'm just giving like a list one here. So now Control Shift F10. Here you see Subbu, Devasis, Deepak, and Tanmay. So now here you go. So this is how you can actually use the break. Now, if you want to actually if you want to have a continue statement, the same example, what we are actually going to do is we are going to like use a continue here. Now, here we go, Python file, continue, while continue, Python file, let's say this is my Python program. If the name is less than, greater than 10, then continue. Don't do anything. Break means break the loop. Continue is don't do anything. Now in this case, what it is going to do, it is going to print Subbu, Devasis, Deepak, Tanmay, and Asutosh. But it is not going to print Subhasis Samantray. Why? Because Subhasis Samantray, the length is actually greater than 10. So now if I'm running this program, here you can see Subbu, Devasis, Deepak, Tanmay, and Asutosh. But Subhasis, no action has been taken. Similarly, you can also write a program like the same example using whatever we have used, right? To uh, calculate the billing basically in the for loop, and we have used like in a pass statement. We can actually use the pass statement also. So that's all about the while loop, the basic while loop, for loop, and then the control statements and all. I'm just going to take like two more examples, then we are actually going to we'll be done with like the loops. Let me write a program right away. Now Python file, or we can actually see here. Okay, let's say this is the program. I'm just going to add a statement here that is known as else statement, while else. Let's say while else Python file, and I'm not going to use like continue. I'm just going to pop out all the names. So now here we go. I'm just giving like list one, while list one print, just having welcome, then list one dot pop of zero. Pop of zero is it is going to like iterate from the beginning. Subbu Devasis. It's going to print like welcome Subbu, welcome Devasis, welcome Deepak. Similarly, up to welcome Asutosh, the last item. So now here you can see it is printing welcome Asutosh. Let me add a else statement here. This while else. This is quite interesting, and you must not be using this one in any other programming, right? So we are done. We are done. Okay. Now here you see this else statement. Else statement will be actually executed only once if the while loop is actually successful. This else statement will be executed only once if the while loop is actually successful. Let's say, for example, if I'm running this program, it is actually going to print all the welcome messages and then it is printing we are done. So whenever after the loop, you want to actually execute certain business logic, a function or any other Python program or any system utilities, what you can actually do is you should actually do it under the else block. Let's say, for example, I want to actually do it using a break. So whenever break is there inside a program and then the break is actually getting executed. For example, while break then else. Okay, while break then else. Let's say I'm having this program and I'm just checking if let's say for example here I'm just checking name equals to list one dot pop of zero. Okay, and if length of name greater than 10, then I'm just saying here in a break. Else I'm just saying I'm just telling the system print, just print welcome then none. Okay, now let us try to understand here. We do have this else is part of our if else block, but this else, this outer else is part of while. You can actually identify from this section. Okay, the indentation you can actually identify while and else. This is if and else. So what this program is going to do, this program is actually going to pick the items from the list starting the index 0. So and then checking if the length of name is greater than 10, then breaking it here. So guys, remember, it is going to break when the name is actually Subhasish Samantray. It is actually going to break here. So this else statement will never get executed. Print we are done is never going to be getting executed because the program is actually going to break. Is actually the here I'm just saying the loop is going to break when the name is Subhasish Samantray. Okay, Subhasish Samantray. Now this will not get executed. This will not be executed as the loop has been break. I mean, as the break statement has been executed. Break statement get executed. Okay, so now if I'm running this program, Control Shift of 10, here you can see it is actually printing Subbu, Devasis, Deepak, and Tanmay. But in Subhasis, the loop is breaking. As soon as the loop is breaking, the else statement will not going to get executed. So remember, it's the simple example to understand while else. Okay, so similarly, you can actually try with for else does the same thing. If the loop is breaking, the statements inside the else block will not be executed. If the loop is actually successful, that is not interrupted or there is no break in between, then what it is going to do, it is actually going to continue with the execution. Now, if you are actually writing it in a continue, okay, writing it in a continue, let us see if you are having a continue, what is going to happen? Now, Python file, I'm just giving while, continue, else. The combination of while, continue, and else. Let us say instead of break, I'm just using continue. Continue. Okay. So now let us understand, like, what is going to happen here. It is going to execute the else block. Okay. So in the continue, it is not going to break. Okay. It's not going to break. This loop is, sorry, this is actually only for break. So this statement we can actually do. Executed. This will be executed as this will be executed. Okay, so this will be executed whenever it is continuing. But if you're breaking the loop, the control is coming out of the loop itself. So else block is not going to be executed. So this is the catch. Loop is successful, else is going to be executed, and you are having continue inside the while loop, it is also going to be executed. Only when the break statement is there and loop is breaking because of certain conditions or certain match criteria, in those cases, the else block is not going to be executed. So this is all about like the iterative statements, while else, for else, you can actually use the same way. And you can actually use like a nested while loop, how I have given example of like now using nested for similar way, you can actually use a nested while loop too. And with this, we are done with the control statements.